Council to be audio-visually recorded and streamed live. A link is available on the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council website to the YouTube platform, where the public can view the meeting live and watch recordings of previous council meetings. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and Regulation 33, these video-audio files will be retained by Council for at least 6 months and made available for viewing live as well as online within 5 days of the scheduled meeting. The written minutes of a meeting, once confirmed, prevail over the video-audio recording of the meeting. I welcome councillors, staff and members of the public and declare the meeting open at 5:32. The Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. All councillors are present. In attendance we have Mr Schroeder, Council's General Manager, and Ms Turvey, Council's Executive Officer. I request elected members to indicate whether they have any interest, personally or via a close associate, as defined in Section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors in any item included in the agenda. Councillor Arnold?
I'm declaring, or have declared, a perceived conflict in agenda item 2.3.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Woods?
Yes, I'm declaring a pecuniary interest in item 2.3.
Thank you. Any further? At this point, I'll say that I won't be declaring an interest in item 2.3. Last meeting, just to clarify, last meeting I did have an interest when this item was discussed because my son Edward was doing a school-based traineeship with Tassal and he's no longer doing that, so therefore I have no conflict. Item 2.1, Policy 1.1, Mobile Food Vans, Pop-Up Stalls and Curbside Vending. The recommendation is on page 5. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Churchill.
The Council include the following wording in Policy 1.1, Mobile food vans, pop-up stalls and curbside vending. For events organised by local clubs, associations and community groups within the municipal area, such as rostered sporting events at recreation grounds, the Australia Day event or Our Park in Orford, and in the Bichonneau Food and Wine Festival, written permission from the organising group is to be obtained to allow any mobile food van, pop-up stall or curbside vending business to participate at that event.
Somebody to second. Councillor Pike, open for discussion. No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Goes to page 9. 2.2 is Australia Day Awards. The recommendation is shown on page 9. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Pike.
The recommendation is, pardon me, the Australia Day Awards are presented in the categories of the following: Citizen of the Year, Senior Citizen of the Year, Young Citizen of the Year, Community Volunteer of the Year, Emergency Services Volunteer of the Year. Those are the nominations. Closing date for the nominations will be 2019 on the 25th of November.
Are you happy with those words, or would you like Ms Turvey to actually change those words?
It was the last line that I started to change that.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
okay, sure. So somebody just...
I didn't understand what happened, that's all.
I put 2019. Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor, is it okay?
Yes.
I put 2019 twice in the last line, and we asked Ms Turvey to correct that.
Thank you.
Okay. That was hard. Somebody to second.
Second.
Councillor Brandy. Open for discussion. Councillor Browning.
Can we, or can I move a motion or add something into this? Can I read it out?
You can read out what
that Mr Martin Crawford be requested to MC Master of Ceremonies at the 2020 Australia Day Awards for Glamorgan Spring Bay Council.
Okay, so councillor Pike, would you, I don't know, do you know Martin Crawford? He was the MC for many, many years.
I do
Yes.
know the name, and
Yeah.
I've only met the man twice.
Yeah. So that's who, and obviously a councillor for many, many years
Yes,
at
yes.
Swansea. Councillor Brennan,
Don't
do you
have
have
any
any objection to adding?
No, I think Martin will be thrilled. I don't see an issue, unless, of course, he is one of the recipients. But we'll
Wait.
jump that hurdle when we get, or if we get to.
I was about to call you Councillor Turvey, but have you got have you got that?
Yeah, is it, we
Yeah, open to
discussion?
discussion.
Yep. The responsible officer, isn't that the manager of, oh, I can't think of it, community services? Isn't that the responsible officer of this, not the general manager?
The responsible officer for the report is the general manager. That's who wrote the report.
Ah.
The general manager can write any report they wish.
Okay.
Any,
So on that basis then, I'd like to seek some clarification around the reasons for proposing the expansion of the Australia Day Awards, because I've got no real problem with expanding them if we received a large number of nominations each year, but generally we don't. We have maybe 3 or 4 each year, sometimes less. To the best of my recollection, there hasn't been a young citizen of the award for the last 2 years. And I'm a little bit concerned that too many awards just may take away the significance of the award in a small rural community. And this would be perfect in a city or in an area where there was, say, another 40,000 people. But I'm just a little bit concerned because quite often what happens is the Citizen of the Year would quite often qualify for the Community Volunteer of the Year because they are very involved in the community. That's how they get their nomination for Citizen of the Year. So I'm just a little bit concerned that by expanding it, we're not going to get nominations for the new awards, but we're also taking away some of the significance. So I'd really like some clarification around the reasons for proposing the expansion.
so the council agreed to review the Australia Day Awards early in the piece. That was one of the things that we agreed to do. I spoke to Deputy Mayor Woods the day before the workshop, I think, when this was going to be discussed. I've had quite a few conversations since November last year about this, where people have asked for more people, particularly as I think we could advertise this probably for longer on a lead up, and also with about 27% of our municipality volunteering, that represents 1,000 odd people who could be a recipient every year, or not every year, but they could be, in there in the running. Also, something that I considered here and why I would strongly support this is the fact that there is a duplication. So I'm just going through my thinking here to answer your question. The fact that there could be, could be a Senior Citizen Year, could also be the Community Volunteer of the Year. I don't think that matters. And again, they could be on the Emergency Services Volunteer. I don't think it really matters which one they get. It's an acknowledgement of what they do. And also with the amount of volunteers that I know that would be worthy winners, again, I think it's about encouraging people to put people forward. I think we can do that as a council, as councillors, as elected members. We can support people and help them even with the filling in the paperwork, which is quite simple if you know how to do it. But I think, unfortunately, there's many people that leave this world before they get acknowledged. And with, what have we got, the oldest median age in Australia of people, with so many of those people volunteering, I would prefer to see them have an opportunity of acknowledgement. I also think that it takes it like broader into the community. So I know last year recipients, the hall was full, the Tribunal Hall was full, like 100 people there. But then I've been informed on other years there hasn't been that many people. And if you've got people from throughout the municipality, then chances are they'll bring their family and friends, and it would make it a bigger day, a better day, and it also will give us an opportunity to move it throughout the municipality. So that's the other thing that I like about it. I think it'll sort of bring everyone together a bit more and a bit more often as a celebration. I think with the Young Citizen of the Year, I think again that's something that I think we have to advertise it earlier than what we currently are. And I note at Sorell, they have a board up as you enter into Sorell for some time before, and so everyone sees it and reminds people. And I think we could probably do that on our town entrance and exits a bit more to promote it, because I just think it's a really good thing to recognise people.
So I have a follow-up question on that basis. Will we require a new honour board or another honour board?
We could get a new honour board, yeah, that's definitely, I think everyone needs to be recognised, and that only came in when Michael, when Mayor Kemp, wasn't it? He brought that honour board in, but I thought of that, or I don't know if you can just extend it, I haven't actually looked at it in the entrance, but I just think it's a nice opportunity to, spread the love and spread the thanks. And
Well, thank you for that detailed clarification, Mayor.
sorry, it went on for a bit.
It almost seems like you actually wrote the report.
No, well, I certainly assisted to write the report, Councillor Arnold, because as you know, Ms Turvey was away that week, and so it was a bit light on with helpers. So yeah, I did actually help write the report, and as you know, that Deputy Mayor Woods and I were the ones suggested to work on this document. So yeah, I did have a fairly big input into it. Councillor Churchill.
Mayor Westby, I'd just like to suggest also that perhaps some sort of certificate for people nominated for those awards, just to recognise all of the people that are nominated for those awards.
Yep.
And it might encourage more people
like
to...
a certificate of merit or something,
Yeah,
and they were invited
something along
along
those
to
lines.
receive a certificate.
I think Tasmania Day Awards that the government used to hold years ago, they actually gave a certificate that advising that a person was actually a nominee on that particular year or whatever.
So
that's probably a good idea.
can we have some words for a couple of amendments here, maybe with the permission of those who moved and seconded this? One would be the awards board, the award, what's it called? The honour board is modified, or a new honour board. What words would we want there, people? So the council's honour board is updated to...
redesigned to accommodate the...
Thank you. Council's honour board is redesigned to accommodate the new categories. And Councillor Churchill, that all
nominations.
all nominees
Yes.
receive
Certificate of recognition.
Significant recognition.
who don't get an award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a certificate of recognition.
That they were nominated, I suspect. Yep. Excellent.
Is that it? Okay. So Councillor Pike.
Yes, I just wanted, wasn't about that motion, it was just about your response to Councillor Arnold, Mayor. I wanted to thank you because that reminded me, because I didn't take minutes of our workshop, but everything you learned there tonight happened at the workshop, so it's really good that everybody knows now what we discussed. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Pike, are you happy with those suggested
The way that's written there, that
Yes.
the honourable body is redesigned to accommodate the new categories, that all nominations receive a certificate of recognition. Yes, I am.
And you've got
Mr Martin Crawford to
is
be requested to MC at the 2020 Australian Day ceremonies. I am happy, very
Okay.
happy with that, to
And
move it.
councillor Brady?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any further comment? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 2.3, Deputy Mayor Woods and Councillor Arnold are leaving the room. Page 13, there is a recommendation. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Brenny?
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I was going to move, could we discuss? A motion to discuss the recommendation,
You'd
is
like
that
a motion
possible?
to discuss?
Yeah, I've just got a couple of questions, some clarity I sort of would like to ask to get some,
Well, we can
Understanding.
move the motion and then within that we do a discussion. Is that a problem to, the motion can be altered as we've just done on that one? Or
Right.
do you actually want to just move a motion to discuss? I mean, I did actually go to councillor Breeny first, so,
yes, I understand that. If that's possible, yes, I think we could do that. Yeah, I've just got some questions that, and it probably is around the recommendation, that perhaps we could word the recommendation a little bit differently for a couple of reasons, which I can go into
so we can
if
go
we're
into
going
that
to
up.
discuss.
Yeah, we can
Yep.
discuss once we move them, second the motion. Councillor Breeny?
I'd like to move that, one, that council resolves that it will not proceed with the Stage 2 PPRWS works, which includes the Twarmley Dam and/or the construction or inclusion of any other additional dams into the PPRWS. Two, that in accordance with Resolution 1 above, that no further work, including any investigative work, be undertaken by council with respect to the Stage 2 with PPRWS works.
Okay, somebody to second that? Councillor Browning? Okay, open for discussion. Councillor Simons?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess the reasons I wanted to perhaps discuss it a little bit was I've just got some concerns around the finality of that recommendation. And it's a little bit to do with the financial and legal implications that might have to us as a council.
Can I just pull you up just for a second, please? I need you to be very, very aware. You all received a letter from TASAL and be aware of commercial in confidence matters, so please be extremely careful on what's being said.
Yeah, I understand that, yes, and I'm aware of that.
Thank you.
As best I can be, without, yeah. And I guess the second thing is to try and get an understanding about the abandonment of Stage 2 and the urgency and the timing of this recommendation, and perhaps get a better understanding of that. So, and I guess at the end of the discussion, I would have liked to craft a motion that probably reflects the council's inability financially to be able to afford Stage 2. That's quite clear.
You're going to run out of time, Councillor Simons. You've got 5 minutes
Yep,
and that's it.
yep. So that, yeah, about the council's inability financially to afford Stage 2. I guess what I would like to do, if I can, is ask through you, Mayor, our General Manager, Chris, a couple of questions, if I could. Yep. Chris, has there been any legal advice taken on the existing memorandum of understandings and associated contracts, specifically in relation to if council was to resolve to abandon Stage 2? Are there any financial, legal implications definitively?
We sought some legal advice that basically advised that we weren't, or council wasn't obliged to continue with building the dam. So the focus was actually around that aspect of it.
Yeah. And I suppose legal advice is legal advice, but can that be challenged? I assume it can be.
I think it's fair to say most legal advice could be
Could be
challenged.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. And another question, if we don't proceed with stage 2 of the proposal, are we still able to recover our costs from TASAL? Is it fully underwritten, stage 1 still fully underwritten by TASAL?
I think that's a matter that needs negotiation. I don't think that's been totally determined. I think that's going to be a negotiation aspect with TASAL, so I can't really speak on their behalf as to what they'll do with that one.
Sorry, can I just come in here? I'm going to stop your time there for a moment. Can you please clarify that, because that's not my understanding. What advice have you got that I haven't seen?
What advice have I seen?
So what I'm saying here is my understanding is we're not obliged in any way to continue on with stage 2,
I agree with that. Yep,
Right.
that's the advice I've had, yeah.
okay?
Yep.
And that the water that we would be able to provide at the stage that we would be at stage 1, at completion of stage 1, would be spill water
Correct.
or Hobbs Lagoon's water when it was permitted to be
Yep.
released.
That's all correct.
Okay, and based on that, and because we can't make it rain,
Mm.
based on that, TASAL would still be responsible for paying for the cost of that setup.
That's my understanding in the current arrangement. I think I was getting the impression, could it be a negotiation point or be challenged? And I think it probably could be challenged, to be frank. But I think the arrangement...
Is that your own opinion, or is that the legal advice? Because we've got to be really careful here that you're providing qualified
Yeah,
advice,
that's-
okay, not...
That's my own advice, that I have not specifically asked that question of legal counsel. So, yeah, it's just my opinion. So that could be, it's unqualified advice, I guess you'd say.
Okay, no, I'm happy with that, Madam Mayor. And thirdly, if we don't go ahead with stage 2, has there been any investigation into what would happen to the federal grant money that we've received? How does that apportion? Was that for stage 1 and stage 2, or has it been all apportioned to stage 1?
There's been some initial discussions, and from what I've been told, it will be, the grant conditions will be changed so that it only relates to stage 1, not the completion of stage 2 as well.
Yep, good, okay.
Early negotiations and discussions on that one.
And, yeah, okay, so that's probably clarified a couple of things for myself, which brings me back to the point about the recommendation, and perhaps, I'm sure there's other councillors here that could word this much better than what I could, but I feel like that's a very final abandonment of the project, which may leave us open to legal challenge. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving that advice, but that is how I could see that. I think we could maybe write a little softer motion that states our position, that we're not in a financial position to complete stage 2, but if circumstances changed, it could be reconsidered.
What circumstances could change?
Well, we don't have to list those circumstances, but they could be financial, they could be any number of things, I suppose, and even just circumstances, isn't it?
But any motion that's put is, can be rescinded, so it's not, there's no finality. Here, a special meeting can be called 4 days, so a council can rescind a decision in a current council with an absolute majority of councillors at any time. From a previous council with a standard majority at the meeting, so.
Yeah, and that is true, I understand that. I'm just, as I said initially, I'm concerned that this type of recommendation resolution leaves us in a position that could be challenged.
Well, you need to actually say, what do you want, request exactly what you would like the mover and seconder to consider.
The council resolves that it will not proceed with stage 2 PPRWS works due to financial constraints. To have that worded in there at some point, showing a reasoning why we won't be proceeding. And that indeed, if circumstances were to change in the future, the current council may reconsider.
That's what you're, and what about number 2? Does that stay as it is in your?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think that's quite clear that we wouldn't undertake any more work at this stage.
Okay, so councillor Brini, it's probably not typed up there at this point, but councillor Brini, you moved that motion. Are you satisfied with those amendments?
No. I wish for the recommendation in my motion to stand as it is for the following reasons. It is final because we need to be aware of exactly what our stance is. I think we need to make it clear to all who are involved in this project of exactly where council stands. The advice that I've had, and I'm aware of all councillors being made aware of the same advice, both audit advice and legal advice, is that in undertaking this recommendation, what we're doing is we're avoiding further financial situations that may arise or have arisen. I don't want to go into any of the financial situations in relation to the project itself because that's business in confidence and we must respect that. And it is a matter for us to be aware that council's situation at the moment needs to take into account any projects like this whereby our situation is dramatically changed, and we don't need to do that at this moment. I believe that it has to stand as it is. I believe that the advice we have is strong advice, legal advice, that says that we are able to do this. And I also believe that if in the future the financial situation of council or our loan capacity or anything else changes and the state government's support of a project like this changes, then we may be in a position to reconsider. But at the moment, this recommendation as it stands, I would prefer to leave it as it is. Thank you.
So at this point, councillor Simons, this motion, if it didn't get up, then you could put something else, but at this point, it's the motion that's on the table now is this one as moved. Can I just say that this, please confirm what I'm saying is correct, that this entire report was written by council's lawyers?
Yeah, it was overseen by the lawyers, yep.
Written by it? Didn't the lawyer actually write it and send it to you?
Predominantly based on a bit of a draft, but yep. That's correct.
Okay. Any further comment? Rachel?
Yeah, I'd just like to support the motion. As far as I'm concerned, I think the motion should stand as the motion is. And I think Councillor Brini has covered most of the content that I would have raised. But I think it's important to give the community some surety around which way we're heading with this for the moment, and that we are constrained by our finances, and I think that's got to be emphasised to the community. And I think the community's understanding of that, and I think they need some clarity. And as Mayor Wisby's pointed out, and nothing is final in the sense that it could be rescinded at a later date. If we were lucky enough for it to rain money instead of water, who knows what might happen down the track. So. Yeah, I think this is an important decision at a point in time, and I think we have to make that.
Yes. Councillor Hyde?
Thank you, Mayor. I just would like to acknowledge Councillor Simon's comments about the constraints. However, I'm going to support the recommendation, but I would encourage Councillor Simon to perhaps come back and present another option which you've been given the opportunity to do in future. If you'd take that on. Thank you.
Okay, so, no further comments? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Breeny, Browning, Pike, Churchill, Wisby. Against? Councillor Simons. Motion's carried. Thank you. Decision there? Yeah. It was carried. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for, 1 against. Councillor Simon. Okay, item 2.4 on page 14. Prosser River Bird Sanctuary. We have a recommendation there. Could I have somebody to move? Deputy Mayor Woods.
I'll move that council consider the installation of a temporary fence and its exact location at the Prosser River Mouth Bird Sanctuary area whilst awaiting the Section 24 Committee of Council Prosser River Mouth Master Plan Advisory Group report, public consultation and final council decisions on the area.
Somebody to second?
Could I just clarify, consider or do? The council installs a
Well,
temporary
we'll get a
fence?
seconder and then we can, it was read exactly how it was written. Councillor Simon, you seconding it, and Councillor Arnold, you had the question whether it was consider or.
Yeah, yes, I wondered if Deputy Mayor Woods' motion was, I mean, the recommendation is that we consider the
Correct.
temporary fence. So is Deputy Mayor Woods' motion that we install it? Or are we just discussing it?
That's a good question, actually. At this stage, I think I will move to discuss. Can I do that? No, I can't now, but you have
Because
the
you've moved
second.
to
Yeah, got a
consider,
second.
and that is fine. That's fine, it's the same thing in just lots of words.
Yep.
So the motion that you've moved is to consider the exact location.
Yep.
And that's what we will now discuss.
Right.
No, that's okay.
Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think, at least as a temporary solution, we have to go with something like the fence situation that we had last year. Last year we had the largest number of fledglings of the fairy terns that have been there for some time. I don't know what the figures or statistics were for the other minor species, if you like, the hooded plovers and the red caps and pied oyster catchers and the like. I don't know what the figures were like for them. But the fence went up last year. The birds had a successful breeding season. I can't tell you whether that successful breeding season related to that fence or not, or was it coincidence? I think looking at it realistically, we can't make that judgment. But until we get some sort of direction or report from the Section 24 Committee, I would be reluctant to do anything other than something similar to what we did last year, along with, once again, signage, and perhaps improve the signage to inform the community a little more when that fence goes up. So that would be my thoughts on the topic for this current season.
Any further comment? No? No further comment?
Well, I'd like to support the motion. I think it's imperative that we protect the bird species. In the meantime, the Section 24 Committee, the Advisory Committee of the Prosser River Mouth Master Plan, will be providing council with good advice and qualified advice on exactly what to do and maybe the same or a varied location for the fence, but in the meantime, we need to get a fence up. There's 2 or 3 pairs of them nesting as we speak, so the sooner we get things done, the better. And I'd like to also commend council staff who were quick enough to get up some temporary post and rope fences around some other nesting black hooded plovers and things like that in the meantime. But yes, I do support this.
Okay, so, so what we're considering this at the moment, and there needs to be, if this is what the motion is going to be and is what's supported by the mover and the seconder, would be the location of the fence, which is the next part that really where we need to hear the opinions on the location of the fence. So you can support a fence, it's where's the fence going to go. So can I go back to Councillor Churchill? Are you referring to placing the fence in for a temporary period of time pending the Section 24 committee report, followed by community consultation, back to council final decision, but are you suggesting that the fence go up similarly to where it was last year?
Yes, that is what I suggest.
Okay,
If we
that's
can,
fine.
if we can provide within that a little more amenity for perhaps swimmers close to the, I guess it's the western side there, where the swimmers go down, and make it a little bit easier, where they were getting through, having to climb through the fence last year.
Sorry, this is the problem we've got. We need to be clear and concise. We have a map,
Yep.
okay, and what we need is a dotted line on a map, right? It needs to be an agreed dotted line on a map. So we can't be wishy-washy, airy-fairy. We actually need a
Well-
dotted line on a map.
Well, then I'm happy with where the fence was last year until we get further advice.
Same,
Same?
yes, definitely.
Same. Okay, so the fence goes back. Now, the other point, and it's not in confidential, is, and we had a workshop on this, and we saw pictures of questions were raised about how wide the path was along there. Why did the path widen out to a 2-lane car park path? And there was concerns about some pretty terrible looking soil that ran along there, that will need to be tested, and then if it is as bad as it looks, then what impact could that have on the waterway there and potentially on swimming in that area? So have there been any tests carried out in that area at this point?
There haven't as yet, but it's definitely on the radar to do that ASAP with the EHO.
Okay, and so what time frame are we talking there?
I think we were saying that it could be done in the next week or so.
And return would only be within a few days.
There'll be a bit of testing time, then it'll come back, yep. So let's say that it'll come back in 2 weeks' time, the actual results will be back.
So, and in the meantime, would there be signs that would be placed if a fence is placed back up? Would there be signs placed on there as a general, there could be?
Yep, I think that would be advisable, yep.
Okay, would everyone, I assume most people are aware of what I'm talking about?
That would be the contaminant
Well, it wouldn't matter from where it was coming from.
from, yeah, no, I'm just saying, that would be the contaminant that's been found there.
Yeah.
Along
If it
this
was.
part here.
If it was, it's along here,
It's along there.
yes.
That's interesting. Yeah,
It's along here, right on the edge of that.
Excuse me, Mayor, just to be clear, the advisory panel, the advisory group, Prosser River Mouth Master Plan Advisory Group, will no doubt be dealing with issues like fencing and very importantly, with signage. Signage is probably one of the primary issues in relation to confusion there. I think if we were to put any signs on on what this is, a temporary fence to protect in the meantime while the advisory panel, of which I'm a member, comes up with a definitive plan and the proper types of signs, the signage needs to be denoted as being temporary. because we might be taking down those signs and we might be putting up something entirely different.
What is, can you be,
In relation to protecting the nesting area or the bird sanctuary or whatever the advisory group comes up
what
with.
new signs made?
I don't want them done now. I want signage that goes up now to people be aware, staff included, to be aware that the signage that goes up now may not necessarily be the final signs. There are signs out there now that can go up. They were on the fence that was pulled down. They may not be the signs that ultimately go up on the final fence that the advisory group.
Are you asking for a change to, I'm getting really confused.
No,
Are
I'm
you
not.
asking for any changes? No. Okay, so we all right? The fence will go, so the suggestion there to the mover is that the council install a temporary fence in the same location as November 2018,
Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
as installed in November 2018. Councillor Pye?
I'm coming back to your original question to the General Manager, Mayor. If there is a contaminant soil there, we have a duty of care to warn that there is to remind people, warn them that it is there until further investigations give results back. I mean, that's a duty of care that we have to the public that access that area.
That's
It's not
why
about
I
the
asked that
birds.
question.
Yes, I'm saying we
Yeah.
need to go back to that and look at that signage, even as a temporary signage, while the contaminant is investigated.
If that's what it is.
If that's what it is, of course, yes. That's
Okay,
right.
going back to Deputy Mayor Woods has agreed to those wordings, yes?
Yes.
Those wordings, the wording?
The wording,
yes,
yes.
Yes,
Can I have some clarification around meeting procedure? I'm not totally sure that you can actually change the wording in a motion that's already been put and carried.
Haven't voted.
I'm sorry, it says, it says the motion was put and carried unanimously there, and that's what I was reading. Yeah, okay, sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
so you're happy with that?
Yes.
The seconder, yes, okay. I'll put, we're right, everyone clear? Can I read it so I'm clear? Area whilst waiting the report, yep. Okay, I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Bylaw 2.5, page 15, the recommendation is on page 16. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Browning?
I move that council resolve to make a bylaw of the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council made under section 145 of the Local Government Act 1993, TAS, for the purpose of regulating and controlling matters of environmental health bylaws, bylaw 1, number 1 of 2018.
Thank you. Somebody to second that motion? Councillor Simons, it's open for discussion. No discussion? Yes, Deputy
Thank
Mayor
you. On page 18, and again, it might read out different when I read it out. First dot point, to minimise potential impacts, council expects that your caravan and your lot will be maintained in good order and at all times. Should that be at all times?
Yeah.
And again, on page 19, on the third box up from the bottom, vehicles accessing and using the site must do so, not to so.
Yep.
Yep.
Fine. Any further? Okay, so,
My typo was just in something, but I did want to just make a comment if I could. What I was looking for throughout all of this was to make sure that there was public consultation, and on page 9 of the report, it clarifies the fact that there is considerable public consultation, and it'll come back to us, so that was good to see.
That's mine.
okay, so, I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 2.6, dog management policy. There is a recommendation on page 18. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Bruni.
I move that Council directs the General Manager to immediately commence the process for re-endorsement of the existing Dog Management Policy 2014-19 with amendments as deemed necessary in accordance with the requirements of the Dog Control Act 2000. That advertising occurs in the Mercury, the Examiner, the Great Oyster Bay News, the Bicheno Forward, the Echoes Around the Bay, Council's website and community notice boards. And 3, that Council commits to conducting a further review of the new dog management policy within 12 months of the Dog Management Act 2000 amendments being finalised.
Move to second that motion. Councillor Churchill. Open for discussion. Discussion?
Yeah, sorry, I was writing. In the attachment, I suppose you'd call it, on the maps. Sorry, I did have it here before. The oval on, and I only speak of Tribunal, but I believe it's on all other ovals within the municipality, that there is a dog restriction sign there.
Have you got a page number?
Page 26 of the actual policy.
Attachment, yeah.
So that's the Spring Bay, including Tribunal and Barton Avenue. The oval is not, or the recreation ground, I should say, is not, hasn't been acknowledged as a dog restricted area or a dogs prohibited area, which I believe it. I believe the recreation ground here in Tribunal is a dog prohibited area, isn't it? Or dog restricted? I can't remember. No dogs on the oval, it's what it says.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're allowed on lead, or when they're there on lead.
Yeah. So, but in this, it's not the recreation grounds are not not acknowledged within the.
So you'd like that acknowledged?
Well, if we're going to do it right, we should be acknowledging all the recreation grounds and the like.
No one's got a problem with doing it right. I'm just asking,
Yeah.
what would you like to have amended?
Yes, well, I would like them to be amended.
And what word would you like to use?
Well, you would put in there as well on the dog zone number, so it'll be 55, no doubt, on Tribunal. The area description, which is the Tribunal Recreation Ground, and it would be dogs prohibited on the oval and under effective control. On all recreation areas within the municipality. So that would be, if I may, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Simons, in Bicheno, can you recall?
I have a feeling in Bicheno it's a dog restricted area, that dogs on leash are okay on the rec ground at Bicheno. I don't think it's a dog prohibited zone.
Yeah,
So I think, are you saying we make the ovals a dog restricted area as in dogs on leads at all times, or?
well, the ovals, they don't particularly, I mean, it's not a good idea to have dogs on an oval because they, people might not pick up their droppings and, you're going to play football or cricket on the oval, you're going to tread in some nasty stuff, maybe. And that's the reasoning, I believe, as to why they are prohibited from the oval, but restricted on with, what is it called, the dogs under effective control.
I think the thing is, though, we need to be careful here if we're going to start prohibiting dogs through this here. Like this will go out for consultation, but we're looking at doing another one. Like, you know what I mean, another full one after the act comes in. Otherwise, we're just not going to have a policy. It'll be dogs run free and penguins look out. So we need to get something in.
So when it's, so if I may, Mayor, we'll make sure that I keep that in mind when we are actually reviewing this properly. Yeah,
fully.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's something particularly sticks out here that's illegal now, after the 5 years, I think we need to change that, and that's what was meant within those words, you know, as deemed necessary, to make changes as deemed necessary. It's more about the legal aspect. But sort of keep the status quo, so at least we've got a policy until we do a proper review after the changes.
Yeah.
So you're happy to stick with what we've got?
Yes. I'm happy to stick with what we've got, but I will certainly keep it in mind when it comes up
When we
for
do a
review.
full review, okay. That's it for you, yes, councillor Pike?
Yeah, we may need to do a review sooner on that, because that's part of the plan for the dog park.
No, that was only about the ground.
That's the recreation ground we're
No,
talking about.
sorry, the oval itself.
Oh, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
on the oval.
Not the 5 acre lot. Okay.
No, and.
Because I was going to ask where, oh, thank you, because I was going to ask where the entrances would be to the dog park off Victoria and Melbourne
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
All right, so that's good,
So
as long as
I'm
we've got that
happy
in.
dogs don't run out into the oval
I've
when
taken
you're
your
playing
point.
football, yeah.
Good, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So if we're okay with that,
Yes,
okay, I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 2.7, on page 19, there's a recommendation on the same page. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Churchill?
I move that council endorses the $400,000 grant from state government for Coles Bay parking. It includes the grant in its 2019-2020 budget and directs the General Manager to execute the deed on behalf of the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council.
Somebody to second, please. Councillor Simons, open for discussion. No discussion. I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 2.8 on page 20, Swansea Destination Action Plan, DAP sign. Recommendation on same page, could I have a motion, please?
Yeah, I'll move to discuss.
And somebody to second?
second.
Councillor Arnold. Okay, open for discussion. Oh, yes, I'll put the motion, all those in favour to discuss. It's unanimous. Open for discussion. Councillor Pike.
just the one thing I remember about this was the size of the sign. We discussed at workshop on that particular thing. If that's been decided, then, because it was rather large, I remember,
Rather
it was
large, yeah.
presented to us. So if that, I may not consider the location, but it's the size I need to reconsider or consider.
My thoughts were that the signage was probably inappropriate on the new Lose with View, and that perhaps there's a better spot for the sign, and maybe not quite as big. It is.
In
it's-
another spot, not
Yeah.
quite as big, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my thoughts on it.
Councillor Churchill, and
Yeah.
then Councillor Brown.
My thoughts are along similar lines. You know, we've got a building there that's quite small. It's architecturally designed, and it would seem to me to put a signboard or a sign on there that's covering almost 3 square metres on a wall that small would not seem to me to be a good look. I'm not comfortable with it being there in that position.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan was next.
Yes, I agree. The fact that tourism is being advertised on a toilet just doesn't ring with me.
Yeah, I agree. It's a huge sign, and like Councillor Churchill said, it's architecturally designed and supposedly meant to blend in to the Jubilee Beach, and put a big sign on there, and it's not going to blend in at all.
I'm concerned, you know, if I walked up to go to the toilet and it'll be, are you in line, are you in line, are you in line, or you're looking at the sign, you know what I mean? So I think that would be a bit awkward. So I'm not a supporter of signs on the toilet and in that location in particular. So we would need a motion. So basically, the question is the DAP group have asked council for permission to place a sign on that toilet. So there needs to be a motion, if the answer is no to that request. Could be that council do not support placing a sign, a tourism sign on that, whatever you like.
I'll put a motion to that effect that council does not support the placing of the sign on that building.
Could we add, sorry.
Wait on, sign, we can modify it in a minute. The council does not support the placing of a tourism sign on the loo.
Disabled part, disabled component of
It's
the
not called disabled anymore, it's called something else. Ambient.
ambulant.
Ambulance.
It's not ambient.
It'll be an ambient view. For the ambulance
Of the ambulant loo with a view. Somebody to second that? Councillor Browning. And then open for discussion, so if you think there's a better word.
I just thought maybe support or approve. So they're asking for our approval.
That's a good point.
Personally, for me, I think it should be just not approved.
Does not
the placing.
approve, yeah.
Approve. Thank you. So, councillor Churchill, happy with the word
Yes.
approve? Councillor Browning, yes. Councillor Pike?
Yes, it's the first time tonight that I've heard of that word used on that loo with a view ambulant. What's on the other part, please, for people with disabilities?
That's ambulant.
What about wheelchair access?
Ambulant.
It can't be ambulant, means you can physically walk.
No, I think that's
No.
the new word for, I'm not going to debate it, but
Okay,
that's,
all
but
right. I
that,
just was the manager of Disability Services
Yeah.
in the Act, and it's
Yeah.
ambulant means you can move, you can actually walk.
yeah, I think that's what they're referred to now, but it's for everybody's use. It's for everybody's use,
Okay.
but I'm not going to
I
debate
know, no, of course not.
it
It's
now.
just, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a wrong choice of words they use. We didn't do it though, did we? Ambulant, we didn't put up there. The council didn't put ambulant. Sorry?
Maybe we just delete the word.
I don't think,
think
oh,
you
well,
just
I'll
delete
have
that.
it.
Delete.
Council's not approved raising a tourism sign on the loo with a view
Building.
Better,
Blue with a view
yeah.
building.
buildings. Buildings? No, we're the only ones that are going to own them.
Buildings,
The
yes.
loo with a view buildings, yep, or
Yeah.
structures.
I think it's important to make sure that it's not to go on the whatever
Buildings.
and the other.
Yeah, what's that?
In
That's
other words,
buildings.
it's not to go on the
Either.
loo with a view building
Plural.
either.
Yeah, that's what about, yeah,
Both.
on the loo with a view buildings or structures.
That's good, that's good.
Structures.
Or structures too.
Structures good, because
Yes.
that takes out the walkway.
Mm-hmm.
And the wooden posts down below and the
Yeah.
railings and
keep
whatever.
going. Okay, councillor Churchill, councillor Browning. Okay, we're all good. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. 2.9 on page 21. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move to discuss.
Someone to second that. Councillor Simons. Put the motion. All those in favour to discuss? It's unanimous. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, discussion. Councillor Simons?
I can probably speak a little bit on behalf of Bicheno, and just the feedback I've received. Most of it's to do with the fact that it's probably being proposed where people actually don't agree that it's an appropriate spot to have an off-the-lead space.
In Bicheno, you're referring to
Only in Bicheno,
Yep.
only in Bicheno. I can't comment on the other spaces really, other than the representations I've read. I think at this stage, as far as the project goes in Bicheno, would probably be best to let it settle and look at it again in the future if we need to.
Okay, anybody else? Deputy Mayor Woods?
Thank you. I'll speak with regards to Tribunna and Orford and Buckland, and it might sound parochial, but that's just a fact.
Yeah.
It's where I am. With Tribunna, with regards to it being at the Oval, and then we were just talking about dogs on ovals, and one of the representations made a good valid point that at some stage that somebody might be there playing a sports game on the oval, and dogs are in the enclosed area, and they may get out and they may chase them while they're playing sport. And I just thought, well, we've got a dog off leash area at Pelican Park, and why wouldn't we consider putting it down there at Pelican Park, and to have 3 dog exercise areas within a very small, or especially 2, Tribunna and Orford, to have a dog exercise park at Orford seems a little bit excessive. But my thoughts are, and also I've really struggled with these dog exercise areas being to help a community in drought, because our communities are certainly not in drought. Our farmers are in drought, but where do they get the benefit to these dog exercise areas at a cost of $20,000 each? I have talked about this rather ad nauseum, but not publicly. But I'm making it publicly known that I won't support it, any of them, simply because I can't see the benefit of dog exercise areas to our farmers and to our communities with that in that regard. And I understand that there is a criteria that we had to follow with regards to the drought funding, but I just don't agree with them. So that's all I'm going to say on it. Thank you.
I just got to say a couple of things on that. So the whole municipal area is drought declared. The whole municipal area is drought declared, not just the farms, the whole municipal area. That's a fact. Each of these dog exercise areas were included in the budget that the council approved for this year. Again, that was unanimous. The projects from the drought funding was for the whole area, to assist the whole area. That was what it was for. We all sat around and discussed those projects, and we agreed on those projects too, because that was all part of the budget. I actually support what I supported in, was it June last year? June earlier this year. The items as listed. The only, and I support the location at the recreation ground at Tribunna. I don't think there was with the motion that would need to be put here, we'd need to actually say where these individual ground, where they would actually go in each town. But the only one I think we need to pull away from is Bicheno at this point in time, because of concerns in relation to the penguins. Councillor Pike, and then I'll come to Councillor Churchill.
Thank you, Mayor. We need to be mindful that this funding was targeted to address the health and wellbeing of communities as well, not drought relief to buy food for farmers or things like that. Now, we've workshopped this, I don't know how many times, in Swansea and in other areas, and as you rightly said, we did the budget as well. This was one of the topics that were raised. So I don't understand, but I'm going to support this as well. As part of health and wellbeing, and of all of these submissions that we've got back, and the whole community had time to do this, the 80% of these are all in favour. I'm best interests of the community. I'm totally supportive. Thank you.
Councillor Churchill's next.
Wisby. Largely what I'm saying is just supporting what Councillor Pike has just said, but this drought relief funding for me was an absolute change, and it was a change that I've always looked for. I've seen a lot of drought farming that really only recognises the stress of the farmers directly, and I respect and support that. That's where I come from. However, the communities that are associated with those farming communities are normally not recognised, and in this grant, that seemed to be the primary purpose of the grant, and I fully support that. I think this has actually been an initiative made by a government that's quite unusual, and I think it recognises the stress in the broader community. And you've already alluded to the welfare benefits for the owners of the animals as well as a facility for exercising the dogs. So that's my view on it. I will support the motion.
The other thing too, it was, sorry, I had the word a moment ago. All the $1 million has to be by people within our community wherever possible to do the work. So it was a stimulus package, sorry, that was the word I was looking for, into local businesses for local employment, for local supplies of goods and services in general. So it is quite a significant stimulus into small business in our area and for individuals to pick up some extra work. And as far as I'm aware, it's the first time, Councillor Churchill, that this municipality has received funding of this type into the communities itself. Normally, it's to the affected farmers, and just recently the council assisted by linking a group from federal funding with local farmers, and I think there was nearly 40 local farmers and farm workers that received up to $3,000 grant each in assistance, and my understanding is there's about to be a second round of those funds which go directly to the pockets of the farmers and the workers who have been significantly impacted. Councillor Simon?
If we don't go ahead with a off-leash area in Bicheno, can that money be piggybacked into one of the other areas to make, a better off-leash park, in effect?
I think the conversation will need to be had. I would personally like to see the money stay in Bicheno, and I was having a look when I was up there. Was it last weekend? Or the weekend before? Yeah, a weekend before, up there for the 2 meetings, and I had a look at the hall and some paint on the outside. So we painted the inside of the hall. I had a look at the outside of the hall. It's getting pretty flaky, so maybe we could request through the Commonwealth Department or the Federal Government Department to do some repairs to the outside of the building so it matches how nice the inside of the building will look. And if there's some additional funds, I was thinking it might be nice to consider some more gear in the playground area.
Yes.
I just prefer it to stay in the Bicheno area.
Yep, and that would be great if that's the case. If we can reallocate it, that'd be fantastic.
So,
Yep.
so maybe that needs to go into the motion too, that the General Manager, if you agree, that the General Manager negotiate with the Federal Department, I can't even think of its name now, well, it doesn't really matter,
No,
but that department,
Yep.
to retain the money in Bicheno and spend on the recreation.
Yep.
What do you call it up there?
The Lions Park
The
really is
Lions
what it's
Park
called, yeah.
and improvements to the external pool.
Yeah, that's fine.
Those
That
words
would be
were
good.
terrible that I just said, but something along those lines, I think, would be good in this motion.
Yep.
Did you make any sense out of those sort of words? You've got something nicer than I just said. The beginning of this motion was moved to discuss. No, you haven't missed it. We just sort of jumped to where do we spend 20,000 of that money. So, any further discussion, Councillor Arnold?
I have a question for clarification. In all the time I've been on council, I don't believe I've ever seen qualified advice from a councillor. And I'm just wondering why Councillor Breeny has written the summary of representations. I have absolutely no doubt that Councillor Breeny is eminently qualified to do it, but it's unusual.
Well, wouldn't it be if the general manager was satisfied with qualified experience would be sufficient? Like we don't need to get a consultant in to write.
We have staff though that are qualified to do it.
What qualification is required to write that up?
I truly don't know, but I'm just making the point that I've never seen a qualified advice document in an agenda written by a councillor, and the councillor's title is not included in it. Simply defined as Keith Breeny rather than Councillor Keith Breeny.
Okay, so you weren't at the meeting in Swansea, and this is where this matter was on the agenda on the 8th of October. So on the 8th of October, we requested, actually it was prior to that, but we didn't get the information. We requested a summary of these representations, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. General Manager, and we requested a summary of these, and what we were presented with at that workshop wasn't not in this form.
It was not in this form.
We got a copy of the individual letters, which made it very, very difficult the first time we'd seen those letters. As you know, I like to get the agendas out and the supporting documentation, as you've requested, also 4 days prior to the meeting, which I always try and do. So in this case, where we're running out of time, we didn't get that information then. We didn't get it from, was it the night before we received it, on the Monday night?
Received it about 5:30 the night prior to the workshop.
Yeah, so by the time I got to the workshop, I hadn't even read it on that next morning when we had to leave to be up there to Swansea. So basically the information that we got on that day wasn't in this form, so it was very hard to have a look at and have a conversation and consider the stuff that we're looking at now. That's where, as you would also be aware, that Councillor Breeny has worked with, at the request of the then General Managers, Acting General Managers, Councillor Breeny worked with Mr O'Leary.
No, you don't have to justify Councillor Breeny's qualifications. I'm quite convinced that he has the qualifications to do it. My question is around the status of a report in an agenda that is written by a councillor that must come to a meeting with an open and unprejudiced mind. So if you've actually written a report, I'm not sure how you come to a council meeting with an open and unprejudiced mind. But that's fine. I take your justification for it.
Can I comment, Mayor? I'll be declaring that I won't be involved any further in discussion, and I'll be leaving the room if that's the case.
Sure, that's up to you, Councillor Breeny. You have every right.
I think that's a fair thing. I've been involved in the presentation of it. Maybe I shouldn't be involved in whether or not I vote for it. It's something that I presented, so I shouldn't vote for my own presentation.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Breeny. Is that all?
Yes, thank you.
I'll just have one more comment. The Orford area, and the other councillors might have some opinions on this. There seems to be that it doesn't seem very well supported in Orford from the representations I read. I notice it says here 2 were supportive, and the remainder, 7 representations was received, and the 5 were against it. They seemed to want to see the foreshore management plan finalised, and maybe are we putting that in the wrong spot as far as the ratepayers that live there are concerned?
Well, I don't think 7 representations is representative of all of Orford.
No.
And there's also 10 representations that were specific. They were generally supportive of
Not specific.
of the
Yeah.
location. So, you know, if we did that with planning, not much would get through with planning because we never get positives. We always get negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a case though to be made for this, the location be held over until the foreshore management plan be completed? Is that prudent, perhaps?
Well, that's a motion. So you need to put so at the moment we're in discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Now motions need to be put, and I would suggest the motions will be put on each individual location.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, so, because that's the easiest way to deal with them. So we've got one there for Bicheno, so would somebody like to move a motion for Bicheno?
That the funding, the dog park proposed for the Bicheno foreshore area at the Oval be not approved. And that the funding for that project be renegotiated and applied to playground equipment in the Lions Park.
And the painting of the hall, was it?
Funding of the
Painting, external
Yeah,
painting of the hall.
renegotiated with the federal government to, and yeah, so you might have to put that in there, Angela.
Sorry, but could you just start from the beginning again, sorry?
Yep. That the funding for the project be renegotiated to be used for the purchase and installation of playground equipment for the Bicheno Lions Park. And for external improvements to the exterior of the Bicheno Memorial Hall. That's it.
Okay, somebody to second that? Councillor Churchill. Okay, so we've got Councillor Simons, Councillor Churchill. Any comments? Councillor Pike?
I have 2, and I'm not sure which order. Mayor, first of all, I would have liked to have commented on what's just happened here concerning Councillor Brennan leaving the room.
Oh, well, you can make a bit of a comment.
I wanted to know, with all due respect to Councillor Arnold, have we set a precedent here now? Because as Councillor Arnold said, this has never happened in her history of being in council. So does this set a precedent now? You sure it won't?
No.
Okay. So
It's up to the individual
so-
council. It's in the Local Government Act as to whether or
Good.
not you declare an interest or not.
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the request from the General Manager to any of us if we could collate. This was a simple collation of letters. It wasn't, So the thing is, if we're asked to do a job,
No, it wasn't a
then we
no.
all have to declare an interest.
No, there was actual opinion in here.
Okay.
It wasn't just a collation of data, it was an opinion.
So then, thanks. So then you're clarifying it for me, which is good. So if the General Manager, for instance, did ask me to do something, if I could do something, because of my experience or my training or my degrees, I would have to declare an interest and not be able to vote
Oh,
in
it
it.
depends. I think that's
Well, I think-
irrelevant to this. We can discuss that another time. We can
Okay.
only talk about this motion
Well,
that's
but-
here now. Like, have you got a concern about something you've done for this motion or this agenda?
Not at all. but
Okay, so we can discuss it after the meeting or at next
Okay.
workshop.
I was going to say, can we put it in the workshop, please? Could we put that down somewhere so it doesn't just be verbal here tonight?
Yeah.
Thanks. The other thing that I wanted to ask is, we're setting a precedent on this motion and I can't support it because this means that if we go through individually, we can say the dog park proposed for Tribunna is not going to be approved and that the funding be rejected to renegotiating and used for the da. And this goes through all of these towns. We can't, that's not an acceptable motion, I'm afraid. You are setting a precedent there. Every single motion is going to read like that and we will have to disperse the whole 20 grand on every one of them if that's so, if people decide to set that.
Councillor Pike, often when we've got a variety of matters to be discussed, they're split up into
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 and 4. So they're split in each, because it is a little bit messy here with Bicheno in particular.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's why it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it was clear as to what some people might agree with some and not others. So that was the reason. How do you write a motion? Like either what you're saying, if we put them through as one, it's going to be quite a messy motion, or they'll all fall over, or they'll all get up, and it becomes extremely messy. So the reason for doing it this way is to make it clear and concise.
I agree with you. So, but if you ask for a motion on every one of them and the person puts up a motion just like Councillor Simons that the dog park proposed for Swanwick does not go ahead, it would be that the funding for the project be renegotiated. Why can't the next councillor put that motion up?
Oh, they could, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily gets endorsed by the council. It'll go down to vote,
Okay,
and then if it didn't get endorsed, another motion could be put.
that's fine then. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so Bicheno, Councillor Simons, Councillor Churchill, motion. Everyone okay? Dog park appropriate report. The dog. Oh, does that make sense? Near the Oval is not approved? Does that make sense, those last words? It just sounds really, yeah,
It's not
is not approved.
It's not approved.
And requested to be used, is it? And requested to be used for the purchase?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
we can't,
Say. Yep.
and it should be renegotiated with the federal department or something, because it just, the motion should stand on its own 2 feet and make sense.
Yeah. Renegotiated with the federal, with the relevant federal department, because we can't remember what the department is, can we?
Okay. Okay, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Councillor Browning, Churchill, Simons?
So the dog park for Bicheno is not...
Not approved.
Not approved.
No.
Okay, all right.
Arnold? Wisby? And against? Councillor Pike, Deputy Mayor Woods. So the motion is carried. Okay, could I have a motion for Swanwick, please? Councillor Churchill.
Is it possible for us to put a motion for the next 5 villages
If
to be approved?
you could, if you were certain that all 5 were going to get up. Now, I'm hearing some people that don't want a dog park in Orford, right? Because 7 people wrote a submission. So,
But if I was to put up a motion that said the dog exercise areas in Swanwick, Swansea, Tribunna, Orford and Buckland were to be approved,
yeah,
then that could be put and It might not go through, but it might be.
And what, then put them through individually afterwards?
Is there an issue with that?
It does get a lot more technical.
Okay, I won't do that then.
No, because you're
How
sort
would
of
you-
putting up the same similar motion
Yes.
again.
Okay, well then I will move that the Swanwick dog exercise area be approved.
As detailed in the as detailed in the public,
In the,
I think it just needs a little bit more to stand on its own 2 feet. As, in the advertisement, sorry, it hasn't got a date here that the advertisement was done. As advertised in the Mercury and Examiner in September 2019.
18th. Oh, sorry, advertised, yes, okay, closed on the 18th.
And we would have to declare, and we'd have to declare them as dog exercise areas. And that these areas are, and this area is declared as a dog exercise area.
yes,
Yeah.
okay, can we word that? Because this is
You
going
can
to
add
be,
it
right, okay, good.
And be declared.
as a dog exercise area.
I don't think it was advertised on the 18th of September, was it? That was
No, I
just
didn't
when
say the
submissions-
18th, I said, you
Yeah.
said the 18th, I
Yeah.
said September.
Yep, September.
But no, it says here submissions must be received by the close of business on the 27th of September.
Oh, it's got
So,
18th on
if
it.
you just put September, then
Up the 18th.
Yeah, probably 18th.
The 18th, doesn't matter, that's fine. Just put September, as Mia said. Sorry.
I think it was the 18th, but that other document says a different date, so just put September, easier.
Formally declared as a dog exercise area.
Dog exercise area be approved as advertised in the Examiner and Mercury in September. Yep. Okay, somebody,
The location is formally declared as a dog exercise area, or? This is your motion.
Very good idea.
but no, it's not the location, is it the dog the dog exercise area, oh, and it is, wouldn't this be, and it is formally declared, because we're talking about a dog exercise area, it's not the location. Sounds pedantic, but it does get a little bit confusing if you don't get it right. Okay, so you, councillor Churchill. Okay, do you want to second that, councillor Simons? Any discussion? No, I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Councillor Browning, Pike, Wisby, Churchill, Simons, against, councillor Arnold and Deputy Mayor Woods. It's carried. And Swansea, we're down to Swansea. Someone like to move? Councillor Browning, you could do a cut and paste and
Yeah,
drop the
cut
word
and paste,
Swansea
yeah.
in.
The Swansea dog exercise area be approved as advertised in the Examiner and Mercury in September 2019, whoops, and it is formally declared as a dog exercise area.
Okay, somebody just second that, councillor Churchill. Any discussion? Move the motion, all those in favour? Councillor Browning, Pike, Churchill, Simons, Wisby, against, councillor Arnold, Deputy Mayor Woods. Tribunner. A motion, please.
Cut and paste.
Cut and paste.
Sorry, Mayor.
Councillor Pike,
Pardon
and
me.
you'd like to do a cut and paste and pop Tribunner in and you'll read it?
Yes. That the Tribunner dog exercise area be approved as advertised in the Examiner and the Mercury in September 2019, and it is formally declared as a dog exercise area.
somebody to second that? Councillor Browning? Any comment? No, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Councillor Churchill, Browning, Pike, Wisby, against?
Oh, sorry, I
Are you
missed the
for?
vote. I was for, sorry.
Okay, so let's go again. For Councillor Browning, Pike, Wisby, Simons, Churchill, against Councillor Arnold and Deputy Mayor Woods. Orford? Councillor Browning,
Cut and paste.
and replace with Orford.
Orford.
Just checking the words for Orford.
The Orford exercise area be approved as advertised in the Examiner and Mercury in September 2019, and it is formally declared as a dog exercise area.
Someone a second? Councillor Pike? Any discussion?
I'd just probably like to bring up the fact again that should we have another piece added, that the decision be held over until the foreshore management plan is finalised.
What foreshore management plan are we
I'm
talking
only
about?
reading the representations. Is there a plan in motion around the Orford area, the foreshore?
Are we talking about the area on the other side of the river, 2 kilometres away?
Oh, well, I'm not sure. I'm only going on what the representation said, so I can't comment on that.
So I would assume that we're talking about, as I say, the area on the other side of the Prosser, whatever, a few kilometres away.
Well, that's probably makes that planning irrelevant to this area, if that's the case.
Yeah, and we're not talking, this is not on the foreshore, this is in the corner of a cricket ground,
Okay.
you know, a recreation ground. It's nowhere near the foreshore.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's good.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Browning, Pike, Wisby, Churchill, Simons, against. Councillor Arnold, Deputy Mayor Woods. Buckland, Councillor Churchill.
Can I read? The Buckland Dog Exercise Area be approved as advertised in the Examiner and Mercury in September 2019, and it is formally declared as a dog exercise area.
Okay, somebody to second that,
Yes.
Councillor Pike. Any discussion? No, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Councillor Churchill, Simons, Wisby, Pike, Browning, against. Councillor Arnold, Deputy Mayor Woods. Thank you, everyone. That was hard. Okay, so I now declare the meeting closed to the public under Regulation 50.
If I may, Councillor Brenny should be back in.
Ah, thank you. I forgot about Councillor Brennan. He's been gone for so long.
He's holding the bench up.
Gone for a drink.
Sorry, Councillor Brennan, I actually forgot about you. Apart from Bicheno, where the request was put, well, to ask the federal government to use that money still in Bicheno to paint the outside of the hall and some play equipment in the park. With that 20,000, all the rest of the sites were endorsed.
Thank you.
Okay, so item 3 is declare the meeting closed to the public under Regulation 15 and the Local Government Meeting Procedures, Regulation 2015, Regulatory Rules 2015, numbers 38. The meeting will be closed to the public according to Regulation 15.2D, contracts and tenders for the supply of goods and services and their terms, conditions, approval and renewal. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And, do you you want to just, we've been going a while, do you want to have a little break and have a, no?
Oh, well, I don't. But
I'm
anyway,
fine.
I need to
Yeah,
get,
give us
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
I need to get a drink in the toilet.
Bye, Kath. Bye, Judy.
If we can just adjourn for, we'll be up here at 10, 5?
10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. 10 minutes.
10, can we go
going
10?
for tea?
Huh?
Are we going for dinner afterwards or not? No.
Oh, well, we should get through this quickly, so we'll go 5.
I'm just asking if you wanted to go, do you want me to let the hotel know that we
Now, are
want
you
to?
staying for dinner tonight?
Yep.
Yeah.